Defense News is proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, election results and how they may affect the military. And more UFO information is landing soon, as a report on unexplained aerial phenomenon comes due. Plus, the Army is ditching its legacy radios. See how the Pentagon is trying to get the right radios for a modern battlefield. And you can't have a fighting force if you can't keep it supplied. One top official talks about how AI, automation, and 3D printing factor into the future of logistics. And finally, what do Norwegian troops eat while deployed to Arctic field locations? Their meal choice may surprise you. We've got those stories and more, with the latest in news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. Local, state, and national elections don't just affect who's in state and national office. Voters' choices have rolled down effects into the military and defense worlds. For a look at how the results could affect Pentagon budgets and other facets of military life, Capitol Hill Bureau Chief Leo Shane talks through some of the possibilities. Take a look.
This year's midterm congressional campaigns haven't been focused much on military issues, but there are major ramifications for defense policy depending on the results of the races. If Democrats hold on to control of the House and Senate, troops and Pentagon leaders are likely to see a continuation of the last 2 years of White House military focus on diversity and modernization. But if Republicans take control of either chamber, they'll be able to shift the debate to some of their top defense priorities. And the biggest will likely be the defense budget. Although Congress has backed steady growth in military spending in recent years, Republican leaders have pushed for even more, saying that the Pentagon's budget isn't keeping pace with foreign threats like China and internal challenges such as inflation. The starting point for a Republican military spending plan could be 10% above the fiscal 2023 defense budget target, which is already over $800 billion. And it could be the basis for some difficult fights over whether to invest more money into military issues or other domestic priorities.
I urge my colleagues to support the bipartisan top-line amendment that includes more than $50 million for intelligence unfunded priorities and $500 million for SOCOM unfunded priorities.
Whether the U.S. military support to Ukraine continues at its current levels also hinges on the election results. Democrats have mostly voiced support for continued flow of money and equipment to troops there in the fight against Russia, but Republican lawmakers have been divided. Kevin McCarthy, the likely Speaker of the House if Republicans win control of the chamber, said last month that his caucus would be less likely to pass generous aid packages for Ukraine. But Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has said the opposite, promising even more money for Ukraine than Biden. Where the issue ends up will be closely watched by Pentagon leaders and foreign allies. And those issues of diversity and inclusion that the administration has emphasized in recent years, they'll likely become the focus of more scrutiny from a Republican-controlled Congress. Lawmakers on the right have already sharply criticized how military leaders have handled issues like transgender recruits, anti-racism training, and abortion access. They insist that time spent on those topics has taken away focus from lethality training and readiness. And they're likely to force service leaders to appear on Capitol Hill to answer questions about whether the ideas behind them are politically motivated, rather than centered on strengthening the military. The midterm results are also expected to bring a host of new faces to congressional defense policy. Already 9 House Armed Services Committee members have announced their departure from Congress next year, and 7 more are in closely contested races on election night. We'll be tracking all the election results as they come in on November 8th. For Military Times, I'm Leo Shane.
Thanks, Leo. And in headlines from around the military, the Air Force will allow unvaccinated instructor pilots back into the cockpit after barring them from flight this summer. The Air Force has been in a back-and-forth struggle over its ability to block unvaccinated airmen from regular duty for months, with most citing religious exemptions. A memo from the head of the 19th Air Force said, quote, "in the best interest of the Air Force, that the instructors would be allowed to fly again." U.S. adversaries around Asia have been issuing warnings against the Pentagon for moves they say are provocative. First, China accused the United States of undermining regional peace with its plan to place nuclear-capable B-52 bombers in northern Australia. The U.S. is preparing to build dedicated facilities for the long-range bombers at an airbase near the city of Darwin. The Pentagon already stages thousands of U.S. Marines in the area on a rotating basis. And North Korea also revved up its rhetoric recently in response to expanded U.S. and South Korean joint military exercises, warning of powerful follow-up measures in response. The U.S. is engaged in high-level exercises with South Korea on the heels of increased weapons testing by North Korea. The regional antagonist has fired a range of ballistic missiles in recent months.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
Disappointing news out of Washington, where intelligence officials told leaders that a lot of really cool UFOs the military has seen are actually just floating junk and our enemies trying to spy on us. Bummer. Top intelligence agencies were set to deliver a classified report on, quote, unidentified aerial phenomena that mostly explains away the sightings as surveillance drones or things like errant weather balloons. Other causes include optical illusions caused by the sophisticated sensors used to find the phenomena, which can create confusing images. The downer of a report remains classified, but if it gets released, we'll let you know. And that's it from around the military. When we come back, is the end of an era in radio communications coming? Stay with us. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. As the U.S. Army continues toward its modernization goals, it's reckoning with the vast amount of radios that have to be upgraded while it prepares to fight tech-savvy adversaries. Is your unit going to lose its radio operator? Reporter Colin Damarist joins us to explain what's on the horizon.
So, the Army is facing a problem. It's got a lot of old radio tech and vanishing time and budgets with which to modernize it. As many soldiers know, the force is awash in the Single-Channel Ground and Airborne System, or SINGARS, the backpacks with the big antennas and the handsets that everyone for years used in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as in training. But at issue is a basic problem. That radio and communications tech is not cutting edge. It was developed for older wars and past conditions and doesn't meet the Army's future needs. So they need to upgrade. But the process is costly and long. So what to do in the meantime? According to Raj Iyer, the Army's Chief Information Officer, the force is going to take a hard look at who really needs what at the battalion level and below, and presumably pare down its older gear. The intent, officials say, is not for anyone to lose radio communications. It is more so about ensuring those that need communications at echelon have them, for both voice and data. The worry here is largely signals intelligence and electronic warfare. The old radios are just not secure enough for the job in a conflict with a sophisticated enemy like Russia or China, say, 10-ish years from now. Meeting cryptological standards, which are set by the NSA, requires a lot of work, which makes it, at the end of the day, a money problem. Basically, the Army can't replace every old and vulnerable radio with a new and hardened one in a timely manner. If the idea of fewer radios is something that makes you nervous, the Army is hedging against that fear by saying it's reevaluating how it wants units to communicate, and that may change depending on the theater of conflict. So a fight against ISIS might require a certain communications picture, while a fight against China has a completely different requirement. And one-size-fits-all approach, Iyer said, is no longer going to work. And what's coming down the line to replace the current systems? Earlier this year, the Army picked L3 Harris and Thales Defense and Security to furnish modernized voice and data radios, and ordered more than 1,000 of them, including those used for quality checks and testing. Word on that testing is still forthcoming, but orders can be made through early 2032. Beyond that, the Army will need to figure out how to phase in the newer radios as it ditches older versions. Exactly when or how that happens, according to Iyer and others, is still up in the air. So for now, It's time for soldiers to start letting go of what the force already calls its legacy systems and look toward a future force with tools tailored for different threats and theaters. For Defense News, I'm Colin Demarest.
Thanks, Colin. Now from NATO. Norwegian soldiers and French Alpine troops expect to fight in the coldest of environments. So naturally, they have to fuel their bodies with the right foods. So what's inside their field rations? This segment of international troops swapping meals holds a couple of interesting surprises. Check it out.
It's the Norwegian Arctic field rations. It's for one meal and it's what we use in the winter.
Okay, so there you have the freeze-dried ration.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is mostly used by Alpine troops,
Yeah.
the mountain and extreme cold. Okay, so that's the first meal. So there, it's written right there, rice and beef. You just have to put hot water in it. Okay.
This is fish in creamed curry sauce. It's about 600 calories and this is for one person.
I like this one because I like fish. This one's good. Plus there's potato in it.
Yeah.
Onion, cream.
It's a kind of French. It's a little bit French.
And we have things like that in French too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm eating beef and rice. Yeah, I could eat this. It's some kind of paste of onion and tomato. It's really good. Okay, so this is what we call field bread. It's a tortilla with beef and in a Mexican style with wraps.
Let's try. This one's good.
Yeah, it is.
This one's good. Nice. There's kind of sort of spicy in there. It's good.
Yeah, it's a Mexican style.
For dessert we have different thing. You can take this.
Yeah.
So it's bread with apple in it.
It's a little bit dry.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like cake and pie.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest fan of this because it's really tasty.
Yeah. This one's too is kind of good because one meal, but you have a lot of things in it. And I think my favorite is the tortilla.
Yeah.
There, this one's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one. As a French soldier, I'll put a great 8 out of 10 for the Norwegian ration.
Yeah. And as a Norwegian soldier, I would put a 9 out of 10 on this French one. Thank you.
Fun fact, Norway is one of the top consumers of tacos in the world. It's the most popular dinner option on Fridays in the Scandinavian country. When we come back, our personal finance expert shows us how to financially prepare for a natural disaster. Welcome back. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack gives her latest tips on preparing financially for a natural disaster.
Ever asked yourself if you're prepared for a natural disaster? Most of us don't think about it or wait until you know it's coming to make a move. But the truth is you never know when or where it'll strike or how long it'll last. So getting and staying prepared is monumental. A good checklist normally includes things like non-perishable food, water, flashlights, batteries, and enough medication to last during and after the crisis. Too often, though, people overlook possible financial needs. Cash will be a key necessity if power goes out or supplies run low. So you should keep a small amount of cash on hand or withdraw money from your account in plenty of time before disaster hits. Having an emergency savings account makes this task less daunting and gives you peace of mind when you need it. If you don't have one yet, set up recurring deposits to an account monthly. Even if it's a small amount, you'll be surprised how fast it grows. Also, talk to a consultant or your insurance agent about having the right homeowner's insurance that fits your coverage needs and make sure your existing policy is up to date. And above all, keep yourself and your loved ones safe. You may not know when disaster will strike, but at the very least, you can be a bit more prepared to weather the storm.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next time. To get more coverage of military and defense issues, set your compass to Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times.com and DefenseNews.com for more stories. And want to stay on top of headlines each day in the easiest way possible? Sign up for our Early Bird Brief to get headlines delivered to your inbox each weekday. And check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram for more content. When we come back, a look at how AI and 3D printing might figure into the military supply line of the future. Welcome back. AI, automation, and 3D printing. The future of supply chain logistics is getting more and more advanced. Keeping a force supplied is a key element to a high-functioning military, and the Defense Logistics Agency wants to modernize. Recently, a top official from the group spoke to Defense News' Joe Gould about future tech for the agency. Here's part of that conversation.
I have a question from Joe Butte from Quantico. He said, how are you using additive manufacturing to close the gap with obsolete parts? And then kind of piggybacking on that, since we're talking about sort of forward-leaning technologies, there's another question about the impact of artificial intelligence and autonomy on the future supply chain. So two kind of future forward-leaning supply chain questions there.
Sure. Yeah, great questions, and thanks for those. So on the additive manufacturing front, so we're engaged with each of the services. So all the military services are all on the additive manufacturing journey, as we are, and working to kind of keep pushing the frontier of what the technology enables in terms of additive manufacturing. From a DLA standpoint, so there's a couple key points that. So one is making sure from a technical specifications and intellectual property data rights perspective, as we identify components that we want to additively manufacture, we're working to figure out, hey, do we have the technical data and the things that we need to be able to go additively manufacture that. I keep talking about this widget that I want to get. So if I have a widget, it may not be the most cost effective. Additive manufacturing might not be the most cost-effective way to mass produce it. So I may still want to have traditional manufacturing for kind of the day-to-day peacetime, if you will, maintenance of the supply chain. But wouldn't it be great for a wartime requirement if I needed one of those, and if I needed, even better, if one of the military services needed to be able to produce that widget forward on the battlefield, and they had the additive manufacturing capability that they could print a replacement widget. We want to have, wouldn't that be great from a readiness standpoint, be able to do that? And it might not be cost effective from a business standpoint, but it would be very readiness effective from a warfighting advantage perspective. And then I'll pivot over to the AI. That is something that we are really excited about and trying to keep pushing forward as we look to modernize our systems, as we look to modernize our technology, and to not just modernize, but to integrate our technology with the services, with industry, and across the logistics enterprise, being able to bring in machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities is critical to, if we're going to be able to move with agility and speed, in the future, and kind of the fight of the future. I mentioned before, that we've got about 5 million stock numbers, 5 million lines of items, individual items that we're responsible for. And so from a human standpoint, being able to just kind of wrap your head around that scale and those numbers is pretty daunting. So to be able to really get after that, we need to be able to figure out how to get those things where I can just kind of pawn those off to the machine and let the AI churn on those and run on those and make sure that we're meeting the warfighter requirement for those items, and then neck down that universe to the kind of the true hard case supply chain challenge issues, if you will, that need the human touch, that need the human involvement, and we can bring kind of that higher level analytical thinking from a human standpoint to kind of work those supply chain issues. So we're working with OSD's Advanced Analytics. Avana is a platform to bring data fusion together and kind of pull data in a way that enables users across the enterprise to apply these AI type tools and to have a common sight picture and common visibility. So we're leaning forward heavily on that and working that with the services and with the combatant command, so that when we all look at the supply chain, do we have a common sight picture, and do we have a consistency of data to then be able to apply these advanced tools.
And finally, the latest in our series of the golden oldies of recruitment commercials. Here's another one to take you back to the ways the military used to try to get you to join. Have a look.
To break free, to reach new heights, master new skills, to meet the world on its terms and yours. Feel the pride. Show the world your U.S. Navy. Live the adventure. Call 1-800-327-NAVY.
And that's all we have time for this week. Please visit us on militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more coverage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.